In the region known as the Caucasus, there is a country named Armenia, situated between Azerbaijan and Turkey. This small country is bordered to the north by Georgia and to the south by Iran. It covers an area of approximately 30,000 square kilometers, with only a population of 3 million. A significant majority of their actual population works abroad, supporting their families back in the country by sending money. Due to its confined space, commercial activities are extremely limited, and the funds brought into the country by its overseas citizens hold great significance for its economy. Moreover, due to political issues with both Turkey in the west and Azerbaijan in the east, they can hardly establish any trade partnerships with these two countries. With no access to the sea, they conduct their commercial activities by land, mainly through Georgia and Iran, or reluctantly rely on air transportation to meet the country's needs. The activities they carry out with other countries are usually organized through their capital, Yerevan. Yerevan can be described as the most visited place and one of the most developed cities in Armenia, located on the country's internal western border. It is also quite close to the Turkish border. Beyond Yerevan, Armenia is generally a country with small rural areas where you wouldn't find much liveliness. Historically, the country was a member of the Soviet Union until 30 years ago and was not independent. Considering the military crisis they faced with Azerbaijan, they have essentially remained stagnant and made little progress. Moreover, being in an active seismic zone, the region experienced a devastating earthquake in 1988 with a magnitude of 6.8, claiming the lives of 23,000 people. Nowadays, the Armenian people lead a moderately dependent life. In the capital, Yerevan, people don't seem very cheerful or happy when you look at their faces. It's as if they have some concerns about life, giving off a somewhat tense impression. Especially adult men appear more stressed compared to women, with their minds seemingly preoccupied. On the other hand, women look extremely stylish and well-groomed. Their life energy is visibly higher than that of men. They enjoy strolling, sitting in cafes, taking photos in squares, and dressing well. Of course, some of the people here also include those who temporarily settled in Armenia after the events in Russia and Ukraine. So, it wouldn't be accurate to say that every person you see on the street is an Armenian citizen. Especially if you look at the faces of some women, you can clearly see a Slavic appearance, and you can somewhat be sure they came from Russia. It's said that Armenian men, particularly after the wave of migration from Russia, have a special admiration for Russian and Ukrainian women and are influenced by them. Armenians speak their language, Armenian, but Russian and English also quite common in daily conversations. Moreover, the genetic structure of the Armenian people carries more characteristics specific to the Caucasus than Slavic races. People in the Caucasus are generally characterized by black hair and a dark complexion. You can find a similar genetic makeup in other Caucasus countries, like Georgia and Azerbaijan. Men have dark hair and black unkempt beards, while women have black hair and a tanned complexion. People you see on the streets usually include office workers, students, and retirees. Armenians, if they are involved in business, are most likely heading to Russia and European countries, as Armenia does not have a large market for trade and cannot offer attractive job opportunities to ordinary people in this regard. You can often see young people sitting around on the streets. Sometimes, you might spot married couples on the streets, reflecting the patriarchal system in Armenian family structure, where the man is seen as the head of the household. Men have the final say in the family. Women are dependent on men and raise their children, while Armenian women might initially be active in the workforce. After giving birth, the responsibility of earning money shifts entirely to men, and women start to lead a life centered around their husbands at home. Bearing children is crucial for the Armenian people, especially given the country's small population of around 3 million. And they need to increase their numbers for the sake of the nation's future. Let's also note that out of the total population of 3 million, around 1.6 million are women, leaving about 1.4 million to account for men. So, the number of women in the country is approximately 200, 0 more than men. Since young men migrate to places like Russia, Armenians are facing a slight challenge in reproducing in their own country. Speaking of Armenian men, it's worth mentioning that they are equally fond of betting on sports competitions. People here are looking for ways to make easy money, and they are aware that entering the job market within the country won't bring them a lot of wealth. The streets in the capital, Yerevan, generally appear clean, and you can see vehicles of all budgets in the traffic. But when you get onto the main streets, you'll notice something. Pedestrians can cross the road without paying much attention to traffic lights. For them, even if the light is red, they cross the road if it's convenient. I guess they haven't established a deterrent penalty system. In this regard, one of the biggest problems in Yerevan, especially in the summer months, is the extremely dry air. It has a scorching atmosphere, and you can hardly feel any humidity in the city. There are fountains in Yerevan where you can drink water. Tourists generally drink water from these fountains and take photos here as a memory. The country has a developed metro system, and in the capital, Yerevan, you can reach any part of the city by metro. Near metro stations in busy areas, you can come across second-hand bookstores or antique shops from the Soviet era. Not only tangible artifacts, but also in various parts of Yerevan, you can find many statues and architectural elements dating back to the Soviet Union era. In fact, many buildings in the city center that are still in use are more than 30 years old, carrying traces from the Soviet Union era. The squares in the capital, especially on weekends, get quite crowded, and people love spending time in parks and cafes. In this sense, you can come across many cafes in Yerevan. People you encounter in cafes are friendly and warm, trying their best to provide you with excellent service, and they don't act cold in front of the camera. The most important and only thing you need to be careful about there is not getting into political discussions with the locals, because Armenia experiences continuous turmoil and instability, both in its domestic and foreign policies. This situation reflects on the psychology of the people, and individuals engage in conflicts with each other, especially in foreign policy. They maintain a chilly stance towards Azerbaijan and Turkey, and figuratively speaking, they don't warmly welcome citizens of these two countries even as tourists. If you happen to speak Turkish or Azerbaijani while sitting in a cafe in Yerevan, they will most likely be cold and rude towards you. To give a simple example, they lost all the wars they engaged in with Azerbaijan in Nagorno-Karabakh, and they were defeated in the territorial struggle. For this reason, regardless of your citizenship, I would advise against expressing opinions about their internal issues. Apart from that, if you greet them, regardless of age, they immediately start smiling, chatting with you, or waving if they are in a car. People in Yerevan spend most of their time at Republic Square. Almost all events held in the country come to life in this square and are presented to the public. In the city, these old white minibuses are used for public transportation. Another noteworthy thing in Yerevan is the police officers, who walk collectively in outfits resembling military uniforms. The police patrol all over the city to maintain public order and aim to ensure the well-being of the people. Additionally, the public can sometimes conduct actions and protests against the government. Therefore, the police are always on alert, preventing potential chaos. One of the most significant shortcomings in Yerevan concerns families with children. Strangely, the city lacks play areas where children can play and spend their time comfortably. If you go there with your child, there is no dedicated space for them, and they end up running around the streets, requiring your constant presence. Although, on average, every family in Armenia has about 2 children, The lack of investment in living spaces where small children can play in the capital is disheartening. Additionally, when you reach the highest points in the capital, you are greeted with a breathtaking mountain view. And those with geographical knowledge will recognize the silhouette of Mount Ararat in Turkey. The silhouette of the mountain is clearly visible from Yerevan, indicating how close they are to Turkey. When you look at the city from above, you can see that it's not overly large. Even the number of modern and high-rise buildings in Yerevan is limited. If you are renting a house there, you shouldn't expect too much comfort and luxury. This is because, aside from village houses, there are few luxurious and fully equipped houses in the capital, and they usually come with some renovation issues. The buildings appear to have pale colors. When viewed from the outside, the average monthly rent for a two-bedroom apartment in Yerevan is around $500. This is quite high for the local population. The vehicles people use are generally old Mercedes and Russian cars. Those in better financial situations drive new model German cars, since the country is dependent on imports in almost every sector, and production is limited. Life in Armenia is challenging. A family of 4 needs a minimum monthly income of $1,000 to sustain itself. And although it's possible to get by with less, something always seems to be lacking. Moreover, while elderly men should be enjoying their retirement, you observe many elderly people in the city engaged in certain jobs and continuing to work. In Armenia today, they use a currency called the Armenian dram, and according to international sources, the country's minimum monthly wage is equivalent to 75,000 Armenian drams. In terms of US dollars, this is only $186. The average monthly income for an individual is between $300 and $400. This amount signifies not just a lower income bracket compared to Europe, Arabia, and America, but even lower than many Balkan countries. From this, we can deduce that salaries in Armenia are extremely low, and people are compelled to work even in their old age to make ends meet. The primary reason young people in the country make plans to go abroad is the low wages and limited job opportunities. One of Armenia's strengths in production is the wine sector. The people here have great confidence in the wines they produce. You can taste and assess the quality of these wines in the luxury restaurants in the country. If you venture out of the capital and head towards the rural areas, in your Armenian adventure, you will progressively move away from modern life. In Armenia, there are vast, untouched lands that have preserved their simplicity for generations, although some small villages have been built on these lands. The mountains there have stood magnificently for thousands of years. However, in rural areas, both the structures of buildings and the order of roads make life even more challenging. For the Armenian people, it's not just the roads and buildings. The models of cars go back at least 20 years from today. The primary reason people traveling to Armenia from outside the country often venture beyond Yerevan is usually to see Armenia's high altitude, mountainous, barren landscapes. Despite its small size, Armenia has plenty of open land. The mountain views here often appear relaxing and peaceful to tourists. Moreover, visitors enjoy observing the everyday lives of people in the villages. For instance, Armenian women in villages don't consume commercially baked bread. They roll out their dough and make lavash bread, baking it in a pit fire dug into the ground. Families, unlike in the city, work more collaboratively with neighbors to tackle daily tasks. For example, if bread needs to be made, neighbors come together, and collectively, bread is baked for each family. Village houses are generally unpainted, and you can easily see the bricks and stones used on the external facades. The houses may look like construction is ongoing from the outside, but in reality, they are actively used. One of the most beautiful aspects of living in rural Armenia is that people there not only make their own bread, but also naturally grow their fruits and vegetables from their own trees. Armenian people in the villages live more affordably and naturally, consuming both their bread and produce. People in rural areas engage in animal husbandry or farming, ensuring their livelihoods, even if the income is limited, and they don't experience food shortages. The villagers in Armenia are less accustomed to seeing foreigners, so when they see a camera, they might be surprised and exhibit a poker face. Armenia, in general, is a visitable country, but it doesn't offer many attractive opportunities for a permanent life. The country's internal and external political issues weaken them, making it challenging to attain the comforts of modern life. If you enjoyed the video, you can like it and subscribe to the channel for free to stay informed about new videos. Goodbye.